On October 1st, 2012, in the small Welsh town of Machynlleth, 5-year-old April Jones was riding her bicycle near her home in the Brynigog housing estate. Her parents, Coral and Paul Jones, allowed her to stay out a little longer as a reward for a glowing school report, a small gesture that reflected the close-knit nature of their community. Neighbors often watched out for each other's children, and the streets were usually filled with the sounds of play. But on this evening, those familiar sounds faded. When her mother went to call her inside, April was nowhere to be found. What started as a typical night would soon draw the entire community into a search that became the largest missing person search in UK police history. April Sue Lynn Jones, born on April 4, 2007, was a bright, spirited young girl known for her cheerful nature and love of the outdoors. She lived with her parents, Coral and Paul Jones, her older sister Jasmine, and her older brother Harley in the small market town of Machynlleth, a close-knit Welsh community surrounded by hills and rivers. April had cerebral palsy and was cared for attentively by her family. Cerebral palsy is a group of neurological disorders that affect movement, muscle tone, and posture due to damage to the developing brain. Her parents described her as loving, trusting, and full of life. She enjoyed playing outside, especially riding her pink bicycle, and she was known in the community as a friendly and sociable child. For the Jones family, October 1st had begun with a small celebration, a reward for April's positive school report. She was allowed to spend a little extra time outside, riding her pink bicycle with a friend in the fading light. The Brynigog housing estate was a familiar and comfortable place, where parents felt confident letting their children play together in the street. The evening had the ordinary rhythm of family life, punctuated by the sounds of laughter that drifted through open windows. As dusk settled, Carol Jones asked her son Harley to call April in for her tea, just as they had done so many times before. Harley slipped out the door without fuss, his voice carrying casually down the street. When there was no reply, he called again, this time louder, more purposeful. A moment later he came back inside, his face pale and his breath short. "She's not there," he said, frantic. "She's gone." Carol froze. For a beat, her mind refused to catch up. Maybe April had wandered a little further than usual. Maybe she hadn't heard. But something in Harley's wide eyes and the brittle edge in his voice clawed at her. She stepped outside, scanning the street. The space that had been full of life minutes earlier was now eerily quiet. It was then that Coral noticed April's small pink bicycle, lying on its side on the pavement. The sight of the abandoned bike, with no sign of April nearby, brought a sudden and chilling realization. The ordinary reassurance of the neighborhood was replaced by a sharp, growing fear. Coral's concern escalated rapidly. She called for Paul, and together they began searching the immediate area, calling April's name and checking behind cars, in their own garden, and in the shed. Their search quickly expanded to the neighboring homes as they knocked on doors, asking if anyone had seen April in the last few minutes. Each answer was the same. No one had seen her. The minutes that followed were filled with increasing panic. The initial hope that April had simply wandered into a friend's house or strayed a little further than usual faded with each unanswered call and each empty doorway. The tight-knit nature of the estate meant word spread quickly. Neighbors, upon hearing the distress in Coral and Paul's voices, stepped outside and began searching their own gardens, sheds, and the surrounding paths. Torches appeared as residents fanned out, their movements driven by urgency and fear rather than any formal plan. The sense of community that had always been a comfort now became a lifeline, as people responded instinctively, determined to help in any way they could. Despite the collective effort, the search brought no sign of April. The atmosphere shifted from concern to dread as the reality of the situation became impossible to ignore. By 7:29 p.m., just minutes after April was last seen at approximately 7:15 p.m., Coral Jones made the decision to call 999.
Police emergency.
My dog's been kidnapped. I live in the dog. Hang on. Val, can you speak to somebody? Hello.
And what makes you think the daughter's been kidnapped?
Apparently, she's gone off in a car with somebody. Somebody's picked her up in a car or something.
Okay, what's the name of the child that's gone missing?
April Jones.
April, how old is she?
5.
Coral also reported seeing a big gray car and a man driving, a detail that would become a crucial lead for the authorities. The 999 call marked a turning point. It was no longer a matter of a child wandering off. The possibility of abduction became real. The police response was immediate, but for the Jones family and the residents of Brynigog, the waiting was agonizing. Neighbors continued searching, driven by a mixture of hope and dread, even as the first police officers arrived to take charge. As the evening wore on, the initial shock began to give way to a sense of collective purpose. Residents who had never spoken more than a few words to each other now worked side by side, combing through hedges and checking every possible hiding place. The urgency was palpable. Every second felt critical. The memory of April's pink bicycle, left alone on the pavement, stayed with everyone searching that night. The events of those first hours would set the stage for what followed. The response from the community was immediate and heartfelt, but the scale of what was unfolding quickly surpassed anything the town had ever experienced. With the 999 call logged at 7:29 p.m. and the chilling details of a possible abduction relayed to authorities, the case took on a new and urgent dimension. The search for April Jones was no longer confined to the streets and gardens of Brynigog. It was about to become something much larger as the police prepared to take the next crucial steps in the effort to find her. The disappearance of April Jones triggered the largest missing person search in UK police history. Dyfed Powys Police, a force more accustomed to handling rural crime, suddenly faced a situation that demanded a level of response beyond anything they had previously encountered. The initial emergency call, combined with the urgency of a missing 5-year-old and the mention of a possible vehicle, forced the police to act quickly and decisively. Officers arriving at the scene confirmed the basic facts, and it was clear that the case met the strict criteria for the Child Rescue Alert System, a protocol reserved for the most serious cases where a child is believed to be in immediate danger. For the first time in the UK, a Child Rescue Alert was formally activated. This was not a routine escalation. The decision required careful consideration, as the system was rarely used and only triggered when the infrastructure was in place to handle a major public response. Once launched, the alert broadcast April's description, photograph, and details across national news and social media.
It's been 36 hours since April was taken from us. There must be someone out there who knows where she is and can help the police find her. We are desperate for any news. April is only 5 years old. Please, please, help find her.
Electronic message boards on motorways displayed her information, and the appeal quickly reached millions. The effect was immediate and profound. The story of a missing girl in a small Welsh town became a matter of national concern, and the response from the public was overwhelming. The town's limited resources were quickly stretched. Roads became crowded, accommodation was filled, and the local leisure center was repurposed as a coordination hub for the search. The sheer volume of volunteers presented a new set of logistical challenges for the police, who now had to register individuals, provide safety briefings, and organize them into search groups. This influx, while a powerful demonstration of solidarity, risked overwhelming the investigation and compromising evidence if not carefully managed. Professional search teams were called in to supplement the local force. Dyfed Powys Police coordinated with Mountain Rescue, the Royal National Lifeboat, Institution, RNLI, Cave Rescue Teams, and the Royal Air Force, which provided helicopter support. Dog units were deployed to cover ground quickly, while the RAF helicopters scanned from above using thermal imaging equipment. The combined effort covered a wide area, but the surrounding Welsh hills, forests, and rivers made the operation especially difficult. The landscape was vast and unpredictable, complicating efforts to organize a systematic search. Police leaders divided responsibilities between trained professionals and civilian volunteers. Professional teams focused on the most challenging and dangerous terrain, while volunteers were guided to search residential areas, open fields, and footpaths. Offers of help arrived from across the UK. Supplies, equipment, and even food were donated to support the volunteers and professionals working around the clock. The scale of the operation was unprecedented, and the logistical demands grew with each passing day. The police and partner agencies met regularly to assess the situation and make decisions about the next steps. The eventual decision to scale down the search was not taken lightly. It involved input from all agencies and reflected the immense strain on resources, as well as the challenges posed by the terrain and the passage of time. Despite the size and intensity of the search, no trace of April was found in those first critical days. The focus of the operation gradually shifted as detectives began to consider other possibilities. While thousands continued to search the hills and fields, investigators turned their attention to the timeline and the people who had been in the area on the evening of April's disappearance. The search for April Jones was still ongoing, but the investigation was about to take a new direction. As the professional and volunteer search parties pressed on, another effort was quietly taking shape in the heart of the Brinnygog estate. Detectives began to interview residents, hoping to piece together the crucial moments before April vanished. In the midst of the chaos, a single account from a young witness would soon provide the breakthrough that investigators desperately needed. Among the children April had played with that evening was a 7-year-old friend who provided a crucial eyewitness account. Specially trained officers conducted the interview, using child-sensitive techniques to ensure the information was both accurate and reliable. The young witness described seeing a gray or light-colored Land Rover Discovery pull up near where April was playing. The account was clear. April approached the vehicle and willingly got inside. The driver was described as a man. The witness also noted that April entered the vehicle on the wrong side, a detail that suggested the car might be left-hand drive, an unusual characteristic for cars in the UK. This testimony immediately shifted the investigation. Police treated the information as evidence of a potential crime in action. The narrative changed from a missing person case to a suspected abduction, and the nature of the search was transformed. Detectives now had a specific vehicle type and color to look for, which provided a tangible lead. The fact that April entered the vehicle willingly suggested the driver was not a complete stranger, but someone she recognized or trusted enough to approach without fear. The police recognized both the value and the limitations of the child's account. While the description was specific, it still encompassed a range of vehicles. Investigators began compiling a list of all local owners of gray or light-colored Land Rover Discovery vehicles. They worked quickly, cross-referencing data from the driver and vehicle licensing agency with local intelligence. Every minute counted as officers sifted through records, searching for a match that could turn the general description into a concrete lead. It was during this process that Mark Bridger's name surfaced. Bridger, a 46-year-old man from the nearby village of Symes, owned a Land Rover Discovery that matched the vehicle described by the witness. Importantly, Bridger was known to the Jones family. He was not an anonymous local, but an acquaintance who moved in the same circles as April's parents. This connection, combined with the vehicle match, made him a person of immediate interest. The fact that April had entered the vehicle willingly now seemed to fit a pattern. She may have recognized Bridger, which would explain the absence of any struggle or raised alarm at the time. Detectives quickly shifted their focus to Bridger. They began gathering information about his movements on the evening of October 1st. Officers canvassed the area, asking residents if they had seen his vehicle or noticed any unusual activity. As the investigation intensified, officers prepared to locate and question Mark Bridger. The urgency was clear. The combination of the eyewitness account, the match to Bridger's Land Rover Discovery, his local connection to the Jones family, and the footage showing his vehicle in the estate formed a chain of evidence that demanded immediate action. Detectives coordinated with uniformed officers to track Bridger's movements and determine his current location. With the focus of the investigation now firmly on Mark Bridger, detectives prepared for the next stage. Their priority was to confront Bridger with the mounting evidence and to unravel the story behind his movements on the night of October 1st. The search for April Jones was entering a new phase, one where the answers would depend not just on the landscape and the community, but on the account of a single man and the details he would provide under police scrutiny.
We have been offering advice and guidance to the police since the suspect, Mark Bridger, was arrested last Tuesday. My role is to examine the evidence that is currently available and advise the police in respect of charges. I now have to advise that, having carried out a detailed review of the evidence gathered so far by Dyfed-Powys Police, my conclusion is that there is sufficient evidence to charge Mark Bridger with the murder of April Jones, and that it is in the public interest to do so. I have also concluded that there is sufficient evidence to charge the defendant with attempting to pervert the course of justice and child abduction. Accordingly, I have authorised Dyfed-Powys Police to charge him with these offences, and he will appear before Aberystwyth Magistrates Court on Monday morning.
This morning we have deployed 10 specialist police teams who are conducting a systematic and methodical search in and around the town. We continue to have the support of a whole range of search and rescue teams who are using specialist equipment as we continue our efforts. We will be keeping April's family fully updated on progress of this investigation. And finally, despite today's announcement, we are maintaining the momentum of the search, and we remain totally focused and committed to finding April. Thank you.
He initially claimed he had been home all evening but couldn't recall specific details, an implausible answer under the circumstances. As he spoke, investigators reviewed local CCTV footage. It quickly undermined his story. Bridger's Land Rover was seen near the Brinnygog estate at the critical time and later traveling away from his home. The evidence directly contradicted his alibi. Within hours of his arrest, confronted with the mounting evidence, Bridger changed his story. He abandoned his earlier claim of being at home and offered a new explanation. He told police that he had accidentally run April over with his Land Rover Discovery. According to Bridger, after the accident, he panicked and attempted to perform CPR on April. He said that when his efforts failed, he placed her body in his vehicle and disposed of it, though he did not specify where. This version of events was a significant shift from his original alibi, and it was clear to investigators that Bridger was attempting to explain away the evidence while minimizing his responsibility. Mount Pleasant, Mark Bridger's rented cottage in Keynes, became the central focus for forensic investigators searching for answers about April Jones's disappearance. From the outside, the stone cottage blended into the rural landscape, but inside, officers quickly noticed evidence of a recent and deliberate cleanup. The floors had been freshly mopped, and there was a strong odor of detergent throughout the rooms. Alongside this, the scent of smoke lingered, indicating that the wood burner had been used extensively. Investigators noted that these efforts were not consistent with panic after an accident, but rather suggested an attempt to erase evidence and conceal what had taken place. Forensic specialists began a methodical search, examining every surface for traces that could reveal the truth. They used luminol, a chemical that reacts with blood, even when attempts have been made to clean it away. In the dim light, areas of the living room, hallway, and bathroom glowed blue under the chemical, exposing bloodstains invisible to the naked eye. Samples were collected and sent for urgent DNA testing. The results confirmed that the blood belonged to April Jones. This finding was a major breakthrough. The presence of her blood in multiple rooms directly contradicted Bridger's account of an accidental death on the road, and established that April had been inside the cottage. The pattern and spread of the stains pointed to a violent act, not a single moment of panic. The investigation continued with a careful search of the wood burner, the source of the persistent smoke odor. Officers sifted through the ashes, looking for anything that could have survived the intense heat. Among the debris, they discovered tiny calcified fragments. These were sent to a forensic anthropologist for analysis. The fragments were identified as belonging to a juvenile human skull. This discovery confirmed that April Jones had suffered fatal injuries, and that Bridger had made efforts to dispose of her remains by burning them. The finding was a pivotal moment in the investigation, as it provided physical evidence of a violent crime and an attempt to destroy the victim's remains. Further examination of the cottage revealed more details about Bridger's actions. Investigators found several specialist knives near the wood burner. One of the knives was badly burned, suggesting it had been placed in the fire, possibly in an attempt to destroy further evidence. The prosecution later pointed to Bridger's background as a slaughterman, noting his familiarity with knives and suggesting that his experience may have played a role in the events that unfolded. The presence of these tools, combined with the blood evidence and bone fragments, painted a clear and grim picture of what had occurred inside Mount Pleasant. Throughout the investigation, Bridger maintained that April's death was the result of a tragic accident and that he had panicked. However, the forensic evidence contradicted his claims at every turn. The bloodstains in several rooms, the bone fragments in the wood burner, and the discovery of burned knives all undermined his story. The prosecution argued that Bridger had gone to great lengths to conceal his actions, including cleaning the cottage and attempting to destroy evidence. Despite these efforts, the forensic work revealed the extent of what he had tried to hide. The police also considered Bridger's statements made after his conviction. At one point, he claimed to have disposed of April's body in a river, but authorities doubted this version of events, given the evidence found in the cottage and the lack of any remains recovered from local waterways. The inability to recover April's body left a lasting impact on the investigation and on her family, who were denied the chance to lay her to rest. In May 2013, following a lengthy trial, Bridger was found guilty of abduction, murder, and perverting the course of justice. He received a whole life sentence, ensuring he would spend the rest of his life in prison.
Justice has been done, and Mark Bridger, an evil and manipulative individual, will have his liberty taken away from him the rest of his life. It is as a consequence of an intense and thorough investigation, using the best possible resources, experts and prosecution team, that the evidence gathered has proved that he, and he alone, is responsible for these horrific crimes.
The verdict brought a measure of legal closure, but the brutality of the crime and the unanswered questions about April's final resting place continued to haunt those who had searched for her. Months after his conviction, in July 2013, Bridger was attacked by another inmate, Juvenal Ferreira, at Wakefield Prison. Ferreira, who was also serving a life sentence, used a razor blade to inflict deep wounds on Bridger's face and throat. Ferreira later stated that the attack was motivated by a desire to force Bridger to reveal the location of April's body, hoping to bring some closure to her family. The judge presiding over Ferreira's case noted that convicted prisoners could not take justice into their own hands, but the incident highlighted the ongoing consequences of Bridger's refusal to disclose what he had done with April's remains. On July 2, 2025, Mark was attacked in prison again, this time suffering grazes to his hands after an altercation with another inmate at HMP Wakefield. April's half-sister Hazel said Bridger deserves everything he's getting, echoing the family's lasting heartbreak. For April's family, the conviction of Mark Bridger and the evidence revealed at Mount Pleasant answered some questions, but left many others unresolved. The loss of their daughter, the manner of her death, and the absence of her body meant that closure remained elusive. The legal process had ended, but the emotional toll on the Jones family would continue, shaping the years that followed. In November 2014, the house of Mark Bridger in Tynews, Wales, was demolished after being bought by the government. By purchasing and demolishing the property, the government aimed to help the community move forward, removing the physical reminder of such a devastating crime and offering a step toward healing for the local residents and April's family.
I wanted to see the house demolished because I don't know if families go through that. It was a dreadful thing that happened here, and if we go past it, it's a horrible reminder of what's happened here. It's like the villagers here as well. It's a horrible reminder of the little girl who got murdered, and I just couldn't. It's just so much heartache as well of the house just standing there, and people knew what went on in that house. It's just, I had to see it go. I just had to.
Watching you today witness this, it must have taken such utter strength to come here. How have you managed it?
We came over as a family, and we've all come over today as a family, and we stick as a family together, and that's our strength, I think.
In the aftermath, Coral and Paul Jones focused their energy on campaigning for changes to child protection laws. Their efforts centered on April's Law, which called for a public sex offender register and the right for parents to know about individuals with sexual offense histories who had regular access to children. The campaign reflected their determination to prevent other families from suffering a similar fate and became a key part of their response to the tragedy. In 2018, nearly 6 years after April's murder, the family was confronted with a new and unexpected hardship. Paul Jones was diagnosed with encephalitis, a serious illness characterized by inflammation of the brain. The condition led to extensive neurological damage, including severe memory loss. For Paul, this meant the erasure of much of the previous decade from his memory. He recognized April in family photographs, but his damaged memory could not connect her image to the events that had taken her from them. The period that included April's disappearance, the police investigation, and the trial He could no longer recall the details of the most defining event in his life, nor the pain that had shaped his family since 2012. On May 13, 2025, Paul Jones died at the age of 56. Jazz Jones made a public statement announcing his passing, describing it as unexpected and expressing the family's shock. Paul's passing marked another significant loss for the Jones family, coming nearly 13 years after April's murder. The impact of the events in Machynlleth extended far beyond the immediate family. The April Jones case brought changes that extended far beyond Machynlleth. In response to the public's reaction, Google and Bing blocked search terms related to child abuse images. Dyfed Powys Police received national recognition for their handling of the investigation, and the case remains a benchmark for child rescue procedures across the UK. The legacy of what happened to April Jones and her family would continue to influence those touched by the case, both in Machynlleth and across the UK. The repercussions of that October night in 2012 did not end with a conviction or even with the passing of those most affected. The story's impact would endure, shaping conversations about child safety, community response, and the lasting effects of loss, and make sure that we honor April's legacy by continuing to advocate for the safety and well-being of every child. Thanks so much for watching. If you're enjoying this video and want to see more, consider supporting us on Patreon, and you'll get access to exclusive content and more. Just head over to Patreon and click the link in the description to join the community. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode.